a very important concept of finance, that is the long-term financing. Here, when we are uttering the word long-term, then the first and foremost thing that is coming to our mind, what exactly is the long-term? Okay, because if there is something called long-term, then there must be something called short-term also. In finance, we have a very strict criteria of deciding a particular item, whether it is a short term or it is long term, and it is based on the timeline. If it is for more than 1 year, it is long term. Less than 1 year, it is short term. So the criteria to be decided whether a particular source of finance or particular asset is a long term or a short term, so it is actually 365 days. If it is for more than 365 days, that is exactly 1 year. Then if it is more than that, means if it is for 366 days, that is more than 1 year, it will be considered as long term. And if it is for less than that, it is short term. Today we shall be discussing about long-term financing, that is those sources of finance which are actually used by the company to acquire funds which the company will be retaining for more than 1 year. So more than 1 year, it can be more than 1 year, it can be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, but the deciding line is, the time factor is, it should be more than 1 year. So that is actually a long-term financing. So there are different sources of acquiring long-term finance, and today we shall be discussing about all of them one by one. So the first and foremost source of getting capital or getting finance for any company is equity share. And equity share, what exactly is the equity share? So you must have heard about the term like so and so is a shareholder in a company, so and so is a shareholder in a company, in that company, this company, and this person is not the shareholder, that person is the shareholder, and so on. So what exactly, who are the shareholders? Who are the shareholders in a company? So shareholders are who holds share in a company. Which share? It consists of both, as we have seen in the very first slide, that is equity share and preference share. There are two types of shares in a company, equity and preference. We shall be discussing each one of them one by one. So who are the shareholders in a company? So those who hold shares in a company. So it can be of any category of shares. It can be equity share, it can be preference share. So those who are holding shares, either equity share or preference shares, they are the shareholder in a company. Now what is share? So the Companies Act has defined a share. What is share? Share is a share in the share capital of the company. A share is share in the share capital of the company. Okay. And what is capital? So capital of a company is divided into shares of small denominations. Suppose the total capital of a company is 1 crore. So 1 crore will be divided into small shares of small denomination, maybe 1 rupee, 2 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupees or 100 rupees. So the entire capital is divided into shares of small denomination, that is, it is as low as rupee 1. Okay, like there are certain shares in the market whose face value is just rupee 1. So it can be of 1 rupee, it can be 100 rupees or 10 rupees or 2 rupees or 5 rupees, as the case may be, as decided by the company. So the entire capital will be divided into shares of small denomination. That's fine. Okay. And any person can become the shareholder in the company by purchasing one share, at least one share. So suppose the face value of share is 1 rupee, so one person can become a shareholder in a company just by purchasing one share of rupee 1. Now, one share of rupee 1, it may not be available at 1 rupee. It depends on the profile of the company, the performance of the company, but essentially the face value will remain rupee 1 if it is issued at earlier it is originally if it is issued at 1 rupee, so its face value will be 1. So any person can become the shareholder just by paying 1 rupee theoretically. Okay. So there can be thousands and lakhs of shareholders in a company. So here in our example, we have considered that there is a company whose total capital is of 1 crore, and that 1 crore can be divided into 10 lakh shares of rupees 10 is. Like one share will be of rupees 10. So if a company wants to raise 1 crore total capital, so it has to issue how many number of shares? 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs into 10, that is equal to 1 crore. Company have raised 1 crore. So this is how total the shares are actually issued, and this is the theoretical definition of share. And this 10 lakh number of shares can be held by 10 lakh different people. Like if I can identify 10 lakh people who are willing to contribute 10 rupees for my company, so this 10 lakh, each one of them contributing 10 rupees, I have accumulated 1 crore for my business. But the question is, why those people will be paying 10 rupees to me for doing business? So the answer is, it's a corporate form of organization, and I have given 10 rupees, and by giving 10 rupees into that company, I became a shareholder in that company. And shareholder means I am actually owner of that company to the extent of 10 rupees. So that much share belongs to me. So whenever there is a profit, that 10 divided by 1 crore, that is the 10 rupees, my rupees, and total capital is 10. 10 divided by 1 crore, that will be my share, and out of that I will be getting that profit, that much of the profit. 10 divided by 1 crore into that profit, that belongs to me. Let us understand the same thing with an example. Suppose the total capital required is 100 crore for a company, and the company have decided to issue shares of face value of rupees 10. Like one share will be of rupees 10 here in this case. Remember, it's not compulsory that company have to issue a share of rupees 10 only. It can be of rupees 100, it can be of 200, it can be of 1000 or 500, or it can be of 5 rupees or 2 rupees or 1 rupee. So here in our example we have taken 10 rupees, but it does not mean that all the time always company have to issue a shares with a face value of rupees 10 only. It can be of 1 rupee also. Okay. Now if the company wants to raise 100 crore, so and one share is of rupees 10, so how many number of shares has to be issued? So 100 crore divided by 10, that is 10 crore number of shares. 10 crore number of shares company will be issuing. Okay, fine. So who will be buying those 10 crore shares? These 10 crore shares can be bought by thousands, lakhs and crores of people across the country. And how much amount everybody will be paying? Essentially, yes, what? So how many 10 crore number of shares has to be issued? Now the question is, this 10 crore, who will be buying this 10 crore number of shares? It can be like thousand, lakhs and crores of people spreading across the length and breadth of the country. Not only country, across the world can buy these shares. And if this 10 crore number of shares are actually issued, company have raised this 100 crore. So this 10 crore number of shares can be issued to any number of people, and this is how this entire 100 crore has been raised. So all these people whosoever have bought shares in this company by paying 10 rupees will become the shareholder. Okay. How many and how much shares can be issued? The question, that is, how many shares can be issued at a time by the company? How many shares or how much shares can be issued by the company? So that question, the answer is, it depends on the registered capital in the memorandum of association. Whenever a company have to be formed, one document has to be submitted with the authority, and that authority is the ROC, Registrar of Companies. So that document is called Memorandum of Association, MOA. Memorandum of Association is submitted with the Registrar of Companies. And in that Memorandum of Association, there is one clause called capital clause. And in that capital clause, the total capital of the company is mentioned. It means that how much should be the registered capital of the company. Like this is the capital which the company is authorized to issue in its lifetime. So company have to pay registration fees based on the authorized capital or the registered capital that it has mentioned in its Memorandum of Association. If a company have given that okay, it wants to raise 100 crore rupees in its lifetime, it means that its authorized capital or the registered capital is 100 crore and it has to pay fees according to on the basis of that 100 crore. Another company wants to register for 1000 crore or 1 lakh crore or 50,000 crore, so they have to pay registration fees based on that registered capital that they have mentioned in their MOA. Higher is the registered capital, higher will be the fees that company have to pay. So that's the concept of registered capital. So how much or how many shares can be issued by the company in its lifetime? It depends upon the registered capital of the company which is mentioned in its Memorandum of Association. And it is called, what is registered in MOA? So it is the authorized capital. In Memorandum of Association, the capital which is registered, that capital is called authorized capital. The name itself is signifying that authorized capital, that is the maximum capital that company is authorized to issue in its lifetime. That is the authorized capital. Now, what is authorized capital? So it is the maximum capital that a company can issue in its lifetime. Now the question is, should entire authorized capital be issued at a time? Suppose the authorized capital company have given is 100 crore. Now, should the company issue entire 100 crore at a time? The answer is no. Then what? If entire 100 crore is not issued at a time, then how much should be issued? So it depends on the issued capital of the company. It is called issued capital. So here in this case, there are certain terminology you have to remember, that subscribed capital, issued capital, called up capital and paid up capital are the same. They are not the same. Issued capital, you have understood that here in our case, our authorized capital is 100 crore. Out of that, company have decided to issue only 60 crore. So that 60 crore will be the issued capital. Here in our example, 100 crore, company have decided to issue only 60 crore. This 60 crore is called issued capital. But company have issued 60 crore, it does not mean that company will be getting subscriber also for entire 60 crore. Entire 60 crore may not be subscribed. Entire 60 crore may not be bought by the shareholders in the market. Suppose here in this case, the company have got subscriber or the buyers only for the 58 crores. Out of 60 crore, only 58 crores have been subscribed. So this 58 crore is called subscribed capital. So issued capital, then subscribed capital. And out of this subscribed capital, company may not call the entire money at a time. If suppose one share each of rupees 10, so that 10 rupees company may not call it an installment, maybe say 3 rupees along with the application. Once allotment is done, then another 5 rupees has to be given. So 3 plus 5, 8 rupees, and say 1 rupee when the company will be requiring it in future, that is called first call, and then another 1 rupee when the company will be requiring that another 1 rupee in future, so that is called second call. So application, allotment and call money. So that how much amount is called, that is called called up capital, and the amount which has been called up by the company, entire money may not be paid by the shareholders. Maybe suppose some shareholders who have submit an application for getting the shares in the company, and that person has been given allotment also for the respective shares, and that person have paid the, or before suppose paying allotment money, something has happened to that shareholder. Suppose he died, or he became a bankrupt, or he became lunatic, and he could not pay the allotment money. So called up capital, out of this 58 crore, called up capital may be say 55 crore. An entire called up the amount which has been called up may not be paid by the shareholders, because some of the shareholders they might be having some financial problem all of a sudden, some of may have some disease, or some of might have died, or some other problem. So all the shareholders may not be paying the entire called up money. So whatever money is actually being paid by the shareholders, that's called paid up capital. So this is called up and paid up capital. So authorized capital, issued capital, subscribed capital, called up capital, and paid up capital. So ultimately what amount will be with the company that is called paid up capital. Paid up capital will be with the company, that the cash that company have received, and this is the amount which the company will be investing it in its business. That is the paid up capital, not the authorized capital. This is the
So, sir,
balance
one
sheet.
question can I ask, sir?
No, at the end, not now. Don't disturb.
Okay.
So this is the balance sheet of Reliance Industries. Reliance it is one of the biggest company of India. So this is the balance sheet of March 2017, March 2018, March 2019, 20 and 21. And here you just see this share capital. So this share capital here, it is 3,251 crore, and 3,251 crore in the March 2007, and in March 2018 it is just double of that, 3,251. So it is 6,335. Why actually this just it is double? Because in March 2017 company have issued a bonus share. Okay, bonus share is that the equivalent number of shares are issued to the shareholders free of cost. And from where this bonus share will be issued? This bonus share will be issued by utilizing this reserves and surplus. This 2,85,000 crore, this is the reserve, and this reserve will be used for paying bonus share here. So this will be capitalized, and this amount will be converted into bonus share. So 6,335 in March 2018. This is 39. Only 4 crore have been raised, maybe by issuing some ESOPs or something. This in March 2019. From 19 to 20 there is no change. Means whatever was the share capital in March 2019, the same was the share capital in March 2020 also. In March 2020, company have issued right issue, means some shares have been issued to the existing shareholders, and that's why there is a small increase in the share capital of the company. Okay, so this is just in brief about the share capital. And one more thing, when we have to discuss about the features of shares, equity shares, this equity share is the share which has not to be paid back by the company in its lifetime to the shareholders. Means these shares are once issued, they are forever. Now the shareholder cannot go and ask the company, please take back your shares and give me my money back. That cannot be done. And that's why if some shareholder who are actually in need of money, they cannot go to the company to get the refund of their capital, just like we do it in a bank, that we have put some amount as a bank fixed deposit, and later on we are in need of money, so we can just go and submit our share certificate or the bank FD certificate, and we can get our money back. This is not possible in case of company. Like we cannot go and ask Reliance that, okay, I have purchased your shares when you have issued the shares, now I'm in need of money, so give my money back. That we cannot do. So if I want money, then I can sell that shares to someone else. That selling and buying of shares, subsequent trading in those shares, Reliance or any company, the issuer company, have nothing to do with that. Okay. Now the question is how the company function. We have just seen that company have issued shares, and this is how the company will function, because ultimately the shareholders are the persons who are providing ultimate risk capital to the company. So how the company should function? So company, there may be a large number of shareholders. As we have seen here, there in this our small example, we have seen that there may be lakhs and crores of shareholders. So if there are large number of shareholders, how company will function? Who will manage the company? Everybody will say that I have given my capital to the company and I am the owner of this company. Since I am the owner of this company, so I have the right to take decision on behalf of this company because I am the shareholder. So there may be a very chaotic situation because there are large number of shareholders. So it is not possible for all the shareholders to take part in the management of the company. So that's why they choose their representatives, and these representatives are known as the directors. So there may be thousands and lakhs of shareholders. All those shareholders, they will be choosing their representatives, and that may be maybe 10, 12, 15 in number, not more than that, not more than 20 generally. So all those representatives, maybe 10 or 15 number of representatives, they are known as the directors. So these directors, they are also essentially one kind of shareholder, like they, sometimes, not always, sometimes they are actually amongst the shareholders. Like some of the shareholders, they have chosen some people as the directors, just like MP or MLA is elected. So they directors are elected by the shareholders to manage the company on behalf of the shareholders, because there may be thousands and lakhs of shareholders, and all the shareholders, if they start participating in the management of the company, there may be a full chaos in the company. And that's why the shareholders, they choose directors, and the directors, they function uh, on by framing a board of directors, and the board of directors, this run and manage the company. So they run the company through the meeting they used to conduct of the board of directors, and in this board of directors, all the strategic decisions of the company are taken on behalf of the shareholders by the directors, and these directors are actually accountable to the shareholders. Why they are accountable to the shareholders? Because they are elected by the shareholders, and that's why they are accountable to the shareholders. Now the question is, uh, as I mentioned about, like, directors are elected just like MP or MLA, so there is some concept of democracy also. So this corporate democracy, how this corporate democracy function? So while electing our representatives, public representatives like MP or MLA or our local state government, normally the principle is one person, one vote. Like one person will be casting one vote, irrespective of that person's hierarchy or designation or worth in the society. Every person have one vote. Uh, Richest person in the country have also one vote, and the poorest person of the country have also one vote. That is the democracy normally we used to have, the political democracy. But in case of corporate democracy, it is not one person one vote, it is one share one vote. So if I have one share in a company, I will be casting one vote. But if I have purchased 10 shares in a company, I will have 10 votes, or my vote will be equivalent to 10 number of votes. And that is how, if suppose some person, like if they have 50% shares in a company, their one vote will be equivalent to, or it will be uh, having weight of 50% of the total share capital of the company, because that person is actually holding 50% of the total share capital of the company, so that one person's vote will be weighted just accordingly. So a person with more number of shares will have more votes, and that's why a person with more number of shares will have more chances to be elected as the director in a company than a person with lesser number of shares. That is a simple corporate democracy principle. How board of directors report to the shareholders? As we have said that board of directors are accountable to the shareholders. So how they will be reporting to the shareholders? So they will be reporting to the shareholders through annual general meeting. Annual general meeting is conducted every year, and who will participate in annual general meeting? All the shareholders of that company, thousands and lakhs and crores of shareholders, all the shareholders are given notice to attend that general meeting. Now notice is sent in advance along with the agenda and everything, so all the shareholders can participate in that annual general meeting. So if there is a meeting of Reliance, and since you know that Reliance is one of the biggest company in this country, so normally Reliance have to book one stadium to conduct its annual general meeting, because the shareholders of Reliance are spread over all over the country. So Reliance have to book one stadium to conduct annual general meeting. But remember, you can only participate in annual general meeting which will be held somewhere in Mumbai of Reliance, but you will not be given any remuneration, or you will not be given any traveling allowance or DNS allowance to participate in that meeting. You have to go of your own, and that's why small shareholders, tiny shareholders, normally they do not go and take part in the meeting of the board of the meeting of the annual general meeting of the shareholders, and that's why only some of the big shareholders and those who reside nearby, they normally come to attend that meeting, and whatever they decide, that becomes binding on all the entire company. There are certain rights of equity shareholders. One is that control over the company. Equity shareholders have the control over the company, and how they have the control over the company? They can control the company by exercising their control in the annual general meeting, by participating in the annual general meeting of the company. By they can, like, they have control in they have a say in appointment of the directors, they have a say in the appointment of auditors, dividend declaration, so they can control over the company, which other kind of shareholders or other stakeholders in the company they do not have. They have the right to dividend whatever is the profit of the company, so that profit belongs to the shareholders after meeting all the expenses. So whenever the company will be distributing that profit to the shareholders, this is called dividend. So they have the right to get dividend in the company. Right to vote in the annual general meeting. When just now I have mentioned, once annual general meeting is conducted, so it is a meeting of all the shareholders of the company. So in that meeting, these equity shareholders, they have the right to vote, right to participate in annual general meeting. They not only have the right to vote, but they can participate also in that annual general meeting. So this is just in brief about this equity shares. And one thing, that equity shareholders, they are equity shares, they are issued, and they are issued forever. All other source of finance, they have certain time duration, that they are issued for 10 years, 20 years, 13 years, 50 years. But equity shareholders, they are for the lifetime of the company. They will not be paid back by the company to the shareholders. So once issued, it is issued forever. This is about equity shares. Now any question up to this, you can just ask.
Sir, I had one question in that capital, issued capital, and in that, if one share is oversubscribed, then what happens, sir?
Oversubscribed, then it will not be like then only the amount which has been issued, only up to that only it can be issued, not beyond that. So like those who have submitted an application beyond that limit, they will be rejected. They will not be issued shares.
Sir, but how is it decided, sir? Like, for example, if it is 3 times or 4 times oversubscribed, like I had this general doubt.
It may be a pro rata basis. Like those who have applied for 10 shares, 100 shares, they will be issued only 10 shares. Those who have applied for 200 shares, they will be given 20 number of shares or 5 number of shares. So that the company management will decide whom to issue shares and what should be the basis. So normally it is a pro rata basis. Like those who have applied for say 10 shares, they will be given say 1 share or 2 share or 3 shares, and the balance money will be refunded to them.
Sir, but it is not first come first serve. Like who comes first, he gets.
It can be if the company decide that it will be first come first serve, that is also possible. It can be on basis of lottery also. Like a company have issued 100 crore and they have received a total application for 1000 crore. So company will be just drawing a lottery. So like for the 100 crore, whosoever have got in that lottery, they will be given allotment, and rest money will be refunded. So it can be pro rata, it can be first come first serve, it can be on the basis of lottery, or it can be just an arbitrary decision of the company, like this person will not be issued shares. Company can do that also.
Okay, sir. Sir, I had one more doubt. Sir, preference shares give you voting rights, or how is it, sir? Like there are classes.
It will not give you voting rights.
Then preference share gives you a dividend first. Is it like that, or how is it, sir?
Yes,
like what is the advantage?
Have
Okay.
patience. I will be coming to that preference. I have just discussed about equities here, not preference.
Okay, sir. No, it was in the slide. That's why I asked, sir.
No, it
And sir,
was not
like
in the slide.
one last question, sir. Sir, there is something like I don't understand this. That's why I'm asking. There class A, class B. What is that, sir? Like
What is class A, class B?
class A shares, class B shares. Something in Google there is like I've seen. What is that,
In
sir?
India, it is not there. It is only equity and preference.
Oh, okay, sir.
Okay. So the next source of getting long-term finance is the preference shares. So here the name itself is having, say, it is indicating there are certain preference. So what is that preference share? So preference share, it has got two types of preferences. The preference shareholders have two types of preferences. One is a preference for dividend and another is a preference for payback of capital when the company will be winded up. Two types of preferences are there for this kind of shareholders. So whenever there will be dividend, whenever there will be profit and the company will be paying dividend, first dividend will be paid to the preference shareholders, and after paying dividend to the preference shareholders, if something is left, that will be paid to the equity shareholders. So the claim of equity shareholder is always the last. After paying all expenses, after paying dividend to the preference shareholder, if something is left, that will be given to the equity shareholders, and that's why it is called equity shareholders have the residual claim in the company. So dividend is, they have the preferential right over the dividend, and that's why they have called their name, the word preference is added along with their name. And second preference is they have the preference for the repayment of capital whenever the company will be winded up in future at any point of time. So normally the process of liquidation is that all the assets of the company, they are realized, means they are sold out, and whatever will be the proceeds, that proceeds will be used for paying all the external liabilities, like all the expenses will be paid, all the liabilities will be paid, secured loans, unsecured loan, preferential loan, all the liabilities will be paid, and after paying all the liabilities, if something is left, then that belongs to the shareholders. Now here shareholder is both the shareholders, preference and equity, and if something is left for the left after that, so first of all it will be paid to the preference shareholders, and after paying to the preference shareholder, if something is left, will be paid back to the equity shareholders, and if after paying to the preference shareholder nothing is left, it will equity shareholders will not be getting anything in case of liquidation of the company. Just for example, total money remains after meeting all the expenses, after paying all the liability, suppose it is 50 crore and the preference capital alone is 100 crore. So all the preference shareholders, they will be getting half of their claim because the total amount left is only 50 crore. So those who have invested say 1 crore in the company, they will be getting 50 lakh. Those who have invested 10 lakhs in the company, they will be getting 5 lakh, because the amount available is only 50 crore, and the preference shareholders, their total worth is 100 crore. So they will be getting just half of their claim. But suppose, and equity shareholders, they will not be getting anything, because after paying to preference shareholders nothing is left. And suppose the reverse is the situation, that total claim of the preference shareholder is only 50 crore, and after meeting all the liabilities and expenses, total amount available is say 250 crore. So preference shareholders will be paid 50 crore, and the 200 crore which is left after paying to preference shareholder, that will be used, that will be paid entirely to the equity shareholders. It may so happen that total equity claim is 500 crore, but equity shareholders are getting only 200 crore because only that much amount is left. It may also happen that total claim of equity shareholder is say only 25 crore, but the total amount left after meeting all expenses, liabilities, and paying back the capital of preference capital is 200 crore. So for 25 crore, they will be getting 200 crore. That's the risk, because they have taken the ultimate risk. So whatever will be the, and they have the residual claim in the company. So whatever will be left after meeting all the expenses and liabilities, that belongs to the preference equity capital. So that's why these preference shares, they have two types of preferences, and because of that they are called preference shares. Rate of dividend is fixed in case of preference share, and that's why you will find that in case of preference share, whenever it is mentioned in the balance sheet of the company, the rate of dividend is also prefixed, like 9% preference capital, 6% preference share, 7% preference share. So 9%, 6% and 7%, they actually signify the rate of dividend, and the rate of dividend is fixed. In case of equity capital, rate of dividend is not fixed. It is fluctuating. It depends on the profitability of the company. But here, rate of dividend is fixed. There are different types of preference capital, preference shares, like participating and non-participating. Non-participating means they will not be participating in the further profit of the company. But participating preference shares, like they will be given a dividend at a nominal rate, and after that some or they will be given dividend at a fixed rate, and after that dividend is also paid at certain rate, certain predetermined rate to the equity shareholders, and after that this participating preference shares, they will be participating in the dividend, in the profit of the company along with the equity shareholders. So they are actually hybrid kind of capital. Up to a certain extent they have a preferential claim and they have their dividend is fixed, and after that if there is a huge profit earned by the company, so they can participate in that profit also. That's called participating and non-participating. Another is the convertible and non-convertible preference shares. Non-convertible preference shares, that they are issued as a preference share, they will be redeemed as a preference share. Convertible means they are issued as preference share, and after some time those preference shareholders, they are given an option to convert their holdings into equity shares. So they are issued as preference share, but later on they might be converted into equity share. So that is convertible preference share. Third source of profit is plowing back of profit. Not a source of profit. The third source of financing is the plowing back of profit. That the profit which has been earned by the company, that entire profit may not be distributed to shareholders in the form of dividend, and the sum profit will be retained by the company, and that can be used by the company for its further investment in its further investment and for its expansion of its business. That's called plowing back of profit. So it is the profit of the company reinvested, and it also represents equity shareholders fund, because the profit which is retained by the company, that belongs to the equity shareholders, though it has not been given in the form of dividend to the equity shareholders, but yet it belongs to the equity shareholders. So how the benefit of it will be given to the equity shareholders? So it is given in the form of bonus share. So it is retained by the company, and bonus share can be issued later on with that plowing back of profit, and it is retained by the company and it is shown into the balance sheet in the just like reserves and surplus. Okay. Now the next form of capital, next source of financing is debentures and bonds. But before that, if you have any question up to this from the preference shares and plowing back of profit, you can just feel free to ask. Any question up to this? Okay, so if you have no question, so I'm just moving forward. So the next source of long-term financing is debentures and bonds. So debentures and bonds, till now this preference share capital and equity capital, they are representing the claim of shareholders. There are different forms of shareholders. and they were given dividend in the profits of the company. But debentures and bonds, debenture holders and the bond holders, they are actually treated as creditors of the company. Means whatever amount they have given to the company, it is just like loan to the company. So they represent debt capital. Till now, equity and preference shareholders, they represent equity capital of the company. But here now onward, debentures and bonds, they represent the debt capital of the company. Means these debentures are actually a loan upon the company. So just like equity capital or preference capital, they are also issued in a small denomination. It can be issued in a denomination of say 100 rupees or 1000 rupees or 10,000 or 5,000 rupees, and it can be issued in the market, and thousands and lakhs of people can buy all those debentures and bonds. But those who have bought these bonds and debentures, they are treated as creditor to the company, as if they have given loan to the company. So that instrument, that debenture or the bond, it is acknowledgement of debt, that this is the total loan of the company. And since someone have given loan to the company, so for giving loan, interest is paid to the investors. If I have given loan to some company, I am entitled to interest. Or if I have taken loan from a bank, I have to pay interest. So since these bonds and debentures, they are loan upon company, so the company have to pay interest to all the investors whosoever have purchased the bonds and debentures of this company. So they have to pay interest. And you remember that interest has to be paid irrespective of the profit of the company. Like dividend has to be paid only when there is a profit, but interest has to be paid. Interest has to be paid even if there is a loss. Suppose someone have taken housing loan, or suppose someone have taken car loan, and that person cannot escape the payment of interest on the basis that this year that person is not having sufficient income, and that's why interest he or she is not able to pay. Interest has to be paid. Whether you are earning profit or you are not earning profit, whether you are in loss, it doesn't matter for the person who have given you loan. And that's why the rate of interest is fixed. Unlike dividend, in case of dividend, rate of dividend is not fixed. In case of equity, in case of preference, rate of dividend is fixed. But whether dividend will be paid or not, it depends on the profitability of the company. If there is a profit, then dividend will be paid with a fixed rate to the preference shareholders. But here, interest is fixed, and the interest has to be paid irrespective of profit or loss. And after some point of time, all these bonds and debentures has to be redeemed. Just like preference shares, here also it can be convertible and non-convertible bonds and debentures. Convertible bonds means after some times they can be converted into equity shares. They have means the bond holders and the debenture holders, they are given one choice. They have option to get their holdings converted into equity shares. So that can be. There are different types of bonds. One is the zero coupon bond. Now what is zero coupon bond? Coupon means interest, and zero is like zero interest bond. Interest is not paid. So why a person will be investing in this kind of bond if there is a zero coupon bond? So actually it is zero coupon just for the sake of saying, but interest is paid not on the face of the instrument, but it is another type of bond. It's called deep discount bond. Suppose there is a bond, the face value of the bond is 1 lakh, and it will be redeemed after 25 years, and the rate of interest is 16%. So 1 lakh will be discounted for 25 years at the rate of 16%, and its present value, suppose it is 2,500 rupees or 2,700 rupees. So that 2,700 rupees will be the present value, and it will be issued to the public, issued to the general public at 2,700 rupees, and that public, the person, the investor will hold that deep discount bond or zero coupon bond up to 25 years, and after 25 years, company will be redeeming that bond at its face value. So 2700, and it will be redeemed at its face value, that is 1 lakh. So 2700 will be converted into 1 lakh after 1 year. So actually this is just a jugglery of words only. Deep discount or zero coupon bond, ultimately it's not that interest is not paid every year, it will be paid at the end of its maturity, and that's why it is called zero coupon bond or deep discount bond. Euro bond, an Indian company can issue bond in India but in foreign denomination, in foreign currency. Like one Indian company is issuing bonds in India in terms of pound. Like the denomination will be pound or dollar or shekel or lira or South African rand, anything. So it's called Euro bond. Indian company issuing bonds in the denomination of a foreign currency, it's Euro bond. And a foreign bond, an Indian company issuing bond outside India but in Indian currency. Like an Indian company is issuing bond in USA, but the denomination is Indian rupee only, but only the place is in USA, it's called foreign bond. And similarly, there are different types of bond that you will get to know later on. So this is about bonds and debentures. Then the third source of long-term finance is the term loan. Now, what is there in the term loan? The loan given for a fixed term. This is called term loan. Now, equity shares, preference shares, bonds and debentures, here they are actually issued to the general public. That's the difference. Equity shares are issued to general public, preference is issued to general public, bonds and debentures are also issued to general public. But here, now in case of term loan is not issued to the general public, it is from some specific financial institutions. Now here public at large is not involved in term loans. In case of other sources, equity, preference, bonds and debentures, public at large is involved. But here term loan, it is public is not involved, only it is the company and some financial institutions. It's a dealing between them. Now there are different types of term loan. One is the loan from DFIs. DFI means development financial institutions. Now development financial institutions, what is development financial institutions? There are certain financial institutions which are exclusively called as for the development of a particular sector. Say for example NABARD. NABARD is exclusively for the development of agriculture. HUDCO, Housing Development Finance Corporation, that is exclusively for the development of housing sector. Earlier it was IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India. Now it is merged with IDBI Bank. So IDBI exclusively in Industrial Development Bank of India. It was for the industrial development. Like IDBI, they do not use to advance loan for construction of house, or they will not advance loan for the purchase of car. They will be advancing loan or exclusively for the industrial purpose, industrial development, nothing for that. So they are actually specialized financial institutions for the development purpose, and they provide long-term loan. The time duration of their loan provided by the development financial institution is 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. So they provide loan for a long-term period, a specialized purpose. Okay, like IDBI, industrial development, they are actually specialized in industrial development. NABARD is specialized for agricultural development. Similarly, some tourism development finance corporation, they are advancing loan exclusively for the tourism purpose. Power Finance Corporation, so they will be they are specializing in advancing loan for the development of some power sector, power project. Nothing, they will not be advancing loan for setting up any factory or industry. If it is for power sector, Power Finance will be extending loan. So that is for a specialized purpose. And normally they used to do project based financing, one particular project, and project based financing is there. development purpose only. They will not be giving loan for non-productive purpose, only for the development purpose. They will not be giving any kind of loan for the working capital or for non-productive purpose or for the consumption purpose. They do not give loan. Second, the term loans can also be from the commercial bank. Normally commercial bank used to provide short term to medium term loans, but nowadays some of the commercial banks, they have also started to extend long term loans or for the development purpose, term loans also they are extending. Non-banking financial companies are also there. They are also sometimes advancing loan, which is in the category of term loans. So this is about the term loans. Now public deposit. Once again here public is there. In bonds and debentures, it is public is giving money in the form of loan and for which they are getting interest. Public deposit is also similar to that. Only thing is that bonds and debentures, they are for a longer period. Longer period means not 1 year, like that they are for a very long period, 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. Public deposit, if the company is in need of money for only 3 years or 5 years, they will not issue bonds or debentures. They will issue these public deposits. They can raise money for medium term requirement, like 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And if the company is in need of money for 5 years only, 3 years only, 2 years or 7 years, then the company will go for issue of public deposits. Here public deposits are also a kind of loan to the company. So those who have given their money, they who have purchased public deposits, they are entitled to a fixed rate of interest from the company, irrespective of the profit or loss made by the company. So that's about the public deposits. So now let us summarize. So different sources of finance: long-term finance, equity shares, preference shares, debentures, bonds, term loans, and public deposits. So this is all from my side for today. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask.